Hey, my name is John with Datto, and today we're going to take a look at Datto Remote Monitoring and Management. This presentation will be split up into a few different sections. First, we're going to take a look at the basic of RMMs and highlight Datto's position in the marketplace. Next, we'll take a look at the benefits of unification we've built between the RMM and the Autotask Business Management Tool, or PSA. If you have the PSA today or are interested in it, this will be a really exciting part of the presentation since there are some unique business benefits when you combine these tools together in the method that we have. And finally, we'll take a look at the Datto RMM platform, demonstrating basic configuration and what you can accomplish with it. Datto RMM is a platform designed to help manage IT service providers and internal IT departments deliver services remotely to workstation servers and other endpoints on a network. It starts by adding the endpoints, which for workstations and servers involves installing a small piece of software called an agent. Other endpoints such as network gear, VMware hosts, etc. will communicate via standard protocols throughout the network. Once a device is added, it goes through an in-depth audit which assesses the endpoint, and based on the assessment, services can be applied automatically. For example, if a Dell Hyper-V server with WebRoot for antivirus and Datto for backup is added, the RMM will automatically apply specific pre-built monitoring templates for each attribute. Another example, if a Windows workstation is onboarded, monitoring templates will be applied, as well as scheduled tasks such as Windows patching, third-party patching, and maintenance routines. These service templates can be deployed and modified per customer, or even better globally, which allows the tool to scale as you grow. We also include a remote takeover suite, which is comprised of a proprietary behind-the-scenes tool, coupled with the screen-sharing application Splashtop, and scheduled reports, which is key because as more work is being done proactively and behind the scenes, it's important to convey the value you're providing to your clients. Some things that help Datto RMM stand out in the marketplace is that it was built from the ground up to be hosted in the cloud. This means, of course, that nothing has to be hosted or managed internally, but also means that it avoids some issues that arise from solutions that have been ported from on-prem to the cloud, such as latency, uptime, and scalability. As you'll see, its mature, feature-rich platform remains very straightforward with many services pre-built and powerful deployment options to get you up and running quickly. And easy and powerful are typically attributes that don't go together in the RMM space. There are many platforms that are simple to use, but they don't provide the tool set that more robust solutions offer. However, the higher-end solutions have a reputation of being difficult to manage, potentially requiring a dedicated resource to get the most out of them. With Datto RMM, we've been able to overcome this dilemma. And it's a very secure platform with 256-bit encryption for all data in transit, secure data centers, and because it only uses port 443 outbound, you'll most likely never have to open up anything additionally on your firewall. Another differentiation we'll look at is the in-depth unification we have built between the Datto RMM and the Autotask PSA. The goal of unification is to allow text to stay within the system of record and access all the tools and information needed to complete daily tasks from the ticket. This should result in efficiency gains, better utilization tracking, while relieving techs of tedious administrative work. The first scenario we'll take a look at is a workflow a technician takes to resolve a ticket created from a monitor. And what we're looking at here is the Autotask PSA. We leveraged its customizable interface to create a pre-built dashboard that acts as the front end of the RMM within the PSA. Later we'll get into how devices are added, monitors are applied, but the end result is a highly detailed ticket, and we leverage some of those details to present them by things like priority, type of device, and type of issue. We've taken a lot of care to eliminate white noise, so you'll never see things like a CPU spike on a workstation here. It's a stat that we're monitoring, so if someone calls up and says my laptop was slow last night, a full history of when it happened and what processes caused it to spike will be available, but it's not an important enough issue to be seen here. The result should be a really clean interface, free of white noise, that displays problems that you actually have to take care of right now. Upon selecting one of the groups, I can now see all the disk space issues on workstations. And when a ticket opens, I can see the problem, of course, disk space is high, but additional details as well, like what customer it happened at, the device it happened on, and other details that were filled in by the monitoring tool. Some of these details could result in this checklist that I generated myself to be automatically presented. So every time there's a disk space spike on a workstation, a technician now sees this. Certain tasks are going to be carried out by the monitoring tool using our library of scripts. So you can see I've been able to run disk cleanup, empty the recycling bin, run a tree size, and if any of these tasks are able to resolve the issue, the ticket would close out automatically. This one's still open, but the technician knows upon seeing this that these tasks have been done. Now something more invasive has to be completed to resolve this issue. We'll also present a snapshot of the device as it was when the alert was triggered. So I'll see the disk space, disk CPU, memory, patch status, other tickets that were opened during the same time frame, as well as if this is a recurring issue, so maybe disk space spikes, goes back down, spikes again, normally that would result in multiple tickets that you'd have to go through to get a full scope of the issue. In our environment, those will be combined and the details of each will be put at the bottom of this ticket. Same thing if it's a different problem. So disk space spikes on a server, the server crashes, we'll have two separate tickets, but I'll see the note of the server crashing on the disk space issue. If I need more details on this problem, I can get directly to the device management tool. It takes me directly to the device we're working on in the ticket. A single sign-on, so it's a lot smoother transition than navigating to the RMM manually. Here I can see things like what's on the screen right now of the device. I can look at the live stats of everything we're monitoring for. So I know disk space is high, but what else might be going on that's of interest? And a full log of all the actions done through the RMM. So remote takeover sessions done by myself or other technicians, Windows patches that I've deployed recently, and output of scripts like the tree size that we know should be present every time disk space spikes. So now I know where to go once I get on the device. There's another log that I really like, especially if you have end users with admin rights. It's called the change log. It'll show any system, hardware, software changes. So instead of asking the end user what you did, I can actually see they've installed a new application. Maybe that's why disk space is spiked. Once we close out, we're always coming back to the ticket that's been tracking time, and now I can launch one of several options to start working on the device directly. The first one we'll look at is the agent browser. This is a proprietary tool that runs at the system level, so I can use all the functions whether the device is logged in or not, and I'm not interrupting the end user. In this scenario, I'll select the file management tool. So again, it's really smooth and quick, allows me to browse through the folder structure. I can also create files, rename things, and then I'll be able to look at the folders that maybe were large in the tree size. I can also speak to the end user before I do anything, and they can respond back. You also see that this is a live view of the device. This chat message will pop up fairly quickly, so you can see if the end user is busy or not. Now I can go ahead and take the action of deleting the files. I never actually had to get onto the device. Some other functions I have access to here are things like viewing event logs. I can also open up scripts. So we have a lot of scripts that are pre-built, and I can run these again behind the scenes without actually having to get onto the device. I can edit the registry, check out the task manager, view vitals and processes from here, as well as go to the services so I can start, pause, restart those. It's a very similar interface to what a technician would see inside of Windows. We also have access to this tool here. It allows me to connect to network equipment via HTTP, so I can get the web browser of a printer, firewall. But I can launch that browser directly in my device using this asset as a tunnel. Same thing if I want to get to a PuTTY session. I can launch that directly in my environment for SSH or Telnet. And again, PuTTY would launch right within my environment. For full screen sharing, we have a few different options. We have Ultra VNC as well as RDP, and it's all built into the agent browser, so I'm not using additional ports. It's all through port 443 outbound, but the primary tool is probably gonna be Splashtop. Really nice commercially available product that's quick connection, very nice and smooth as well, and it's included at no charge. Everything's brandable within the user interface as well. And this remote takeover solution has all the functions you would expect: blank the screen, lock the keyboard. I can paste in passwords prior to login, supports multiple monitors, and a session where if you have terminal servers, you can jump between the sessions. What's really nice is that once we're done with all this and we close out, you'll see that everything has been logged and timestamped as well. So how long the session took, the chat session, the file that I deleted, the remote takeover session with Splashtop has all been logged, and this will all be placed directly onto the ticket that we started from. So once I'm done, I close out. I'm always coming back to the ticket. The time should be accurate. I know all the notes are in there. So at this point, I can hit complete. Or of course, I can put in additional notes and adjust the time. But more likely than not, you'll just be closing out of this and hitting save and moving on to the next problem. So a very smooth workflow when it comes to resolving an alert. Instead of starting the RMM tool, then going to the remote takeover, then back to PSA to create the ticket and put in notes manually, we had access to all the tools we needed to resolve the issue right from the system of record. And again, all the notes got put in automatically once we were done. The next thing I will touch on is the typical help desk call. And today I'm sure customers get in touch via phone, email, text messaging, etc. But the ideal way an end user gets in contact with Datto RMM is through the brandable tray icon. And upon a right click, the end user has access to request support with or without a screenshot. This console is brandable as well, and you choose what's on here, what's optional, what's mandatory, what's visible, what's not visible. And as soon as they hit submit here, it creates a fully filled out ticket inside of Autotask. So if we open one of these up, we can see the input from the client, but automatically the customer and the device are attached. We then get additional information like the screenshot, the recent change log, as well as performance stats, so a lot more information than a customer would put in to allow the technician to figure out the problem faster. We now have access to all the log data, the remote takeover tools, the chat, just like we did with the ticket created from an alert. And again, all the notes will go right back in. The time should be accurate. So again, we're tracking time accurately and doing things a lot more efficiently. Users don't always use the tools we provide them. So right from here, I can do an asset search. So again, data that normally you'd have to go to the RMM for, I can access directly within the PSA. This allows me to search for what usually the user has when they call up their name, so I can find their device quickly, some additional device information that might be helpful right from here. And then I have access to either remote takeover, or even better, I can create a ticket. And the reason we typically don't create tickets before remote takeover when a customer is on the line is because it takes a lot of time to do this. When I create the ticket from the device, it attaches the customer and the asset automatically, so it jumpstarts the process of creating the ticket. And then using a speed code, I can fill out the rest of the attributes, which now allows me to take care of this in a very similar manner to a ticket created from an alert. I do all my work, time's accurate, notes get put in automatically. Worst case scenario is that you go right into remote takeover, so if you feel pressured to, you can go directly from the search to the device. But once you're done, when we close out, it's still prompting us to say you did work. Either add this work to an existing ticket, or right from here now, we actually can create a new one from scratch. So at the end of the day, instead of trying to remember things or using scratch paper or whichever way you do it today, which usually results in not accurate time tracking and very few notes or even tracking it at all. But now I'll have it where all those remote activity tickets are lined up for me at the end of the day. If we look at one of these, you'll see it's attached to the asset and the account automatically. We have all the notes for the remote takeover. The timer is not accurate, but I can use the timestamp now to put in my time manually. But hopefully you've seen through these scenarios how the unification allows techs to get work done faster, track time more accurately, and also reduce process work. And we actually confirmed this through several studies we did through a partner, through a third-party Forrester. And if you review these studies, which if you don't have them, definitely get your sales rep to send them over, you'll see that we cut down process time by about 10 minutes. So you have a little bit of efficiency gain, but you have a lot better information in your ticket, which usually requires more work. But even more revealing, there's an average of an hour extra per day in tech utilization tracking. So work that was being done, just not being tracked accurately, allowing to see your profitability. And as you've seen, hopefully too, every ticket has a device attached to it. So you now see that profitability down to the device level. So instead of saying like, I feel like I work with Bob Smith a lot, you know it. He takes up 6 hours of help desk time every month. We need to retrain him. The server takes a lot of our technicians' time. We should update it. You have the hard data now to make those decisions on. There's also quite a bit of asset information we have visibility to inside the PSA. And again, this is from the RMM data that's being pulled over that we looked at in the search earlier, where we created the ticket or did the remote takeover session directly from the asset. We can also use that information to create widgets. I've created a few here myself, looking for upgrade opportunities, under-provisioned devices, people using backup tools, we didn't sell them, warranties coming up, and then you can see some pre-built widgets here showing overall IT estate information. These are all reports I can run in the RMM, but again, using the visual reporting tool inside the PSA and seeing everything in one platform has its advantages. Another really positive part of seeing device information is that knowing when there's a new device added. So if you're doing contracts based on device counts, typically what our partners go through is that they add a device in the RMM, and at the end of the month, end of the quarter is when you're reconciling, making sure you're billing for the correct amount in your contracts inside of the PSA. When you have a unified platform, I can see the new devices that have been added to the RMM tool but aren't yet being billed for. This allows me to easily map these assets to a contract, which will increment the contract by 1, making sure that I'm getting paid right away. It takes the manual work of reconciling it though, because I can look at this widget anytime I want to, see those new assets, quickly add them to the contract. Same thing when it comes to a device that's been removed from the RMM. I can click on this widget, reduce the contract, making sure that billing is always aligned. So hopefully you saw through the reunification, there's a lot of really interesting things you can do, a lot of powerful things when you align business management, device management as closely as we have. Now let's take a look at the RMM to, again, see its configuration and what things you can do through it. And I can access the RMM directly from the PSA for a single sign-on again. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure that I let you know that these are two standalone products. Even though we've merged them incredibly closely together, they can be standalone. So when I have just the RMM, I still have access to things like the search. So very similar to how we did it inside of the PSA, I can search for end user or device type, pull up that information, take over the device directly through here. What's really incredible though is that again, we did that through the PSA, through the business management tool using the same data. There is a basic alerting tool, so not a full-blown ticketing system, but I'll be able to see when there's an alert. I'll be able to then do the takeover, get to the device data, just like we did from the PSA ticket. But there's no timer, the notes don't go back into the ticket, there's no contract or billing component like there is in the PSA. But you will have a basic standalone ticketing alerting tool that's inside of here. So I want to make sure we went over that before we went any further. If we check out the setup of the RMM, it's pretty simple. You have your sites, which are your clients. And if you have a lot of clients, you can actually upload these with an Excel spreadsheet. If you have the PSA though, all these are loaded and pushed down from the PSA. Once we have our site, that's when we can add a device. So again, it's an agent-based tool. We'll have an agent installed on all the workstations and servers. And there's a few different ways to get it deployed. If it's a domain environment, I can actually deploy out the agent to one device. Also, if it's a workgroup environment and you do have an admin password for all the assets, as long as you have the password in there and file sharing is enabled, you can actually deploy over LAN via workgroup. But in both scenarios, you deploy out the first agent. This can be done by you downloading and installing it manually. It's a custom executable per client. So all you have to do is actually just download and open the file. If you don't have access to the site, that's where you can shoot out a link to the end user. And again, it's a custom static URL. As long as that end user has admin rights and they know how to download and open a file, they can install the agent. Within about 30 seconds, you'll see the asset in the device tab here in the RMM. I can then elevate that first device, whether it's a workstation or a server, to a network node, or some people call it a probe. This is going to scan the network, find all the assets out there. Within about 5 minutes, I should have a full scan of the network. If I need additional subnets, I can enter those in the settings. By default, the device will scan the subnet that it's on. But we'll see everything in here. We'll see the other workstations and servers. We'll see network equipment, smart fridges, ESXi hosts. Everything is going to show up here. And then as long as you have the credentials in, so again, the domain credentials, the SNMP credentials if you're going to manage network gear, the root password if you're going to look at ESXi hosts, you can now select the devices you want to deploy the agent to. And then for workstations and servers, we aren't actually deploying out the agent. We'll just be monitored through the network node. But very simple solution to propagate the agent throughout the environment without having to install the agent manually. We can also leverage most RMM tool scripting engine to push out the agent. So if you do have a current RMM, we can use it to deploy out the agent to those devices that you already have an agent on through the other RMM tool. So pretty simple to get the devices out there. Once the devices are deployed, that's when we do a full audit. And this audit data is important for inventory information. So if we look at this device here, I can see on the front page things like the OS, model, manufacturer, warranty data, patch status, third-party patching, antivirus, some other information that I customized to see on this front page here. And then if we go on the audit tab, we'll see additional hardware info. So serial, motherboard, processor. I can look at all the adapters. I can see the internal, external IP addresses, any peripherals that are attached, even information down to the parts numbers on RAM. So a lot of good information that gets pulled in. This information, though, more importantly, is starting to tell our system how to handle this device. So I can see here, this is a Windows desktop OS. That device would automatically fall into this bucket or this filter. We also pull in what software is running and the versions, and that of course can cause the device to fall into additional filters. So this device is a desktop, still falls into that bucket, but then it also falls into the additional bucket for WebRoot. We sense what services are running on a server. Maybe it's running the NTDS service. We would automatically detect that. It would also then fall into the domain controller bucket. Certain backup tools, the device will automatically start to fall into more buckets as we figure out information about it. These buckets are like searches, and you can build your own. So if I go now to the global account level, I can make a search to maybe find all the devices that have a certain version less than of a software package. So if I want to find everybody that has a version less than or equal to this of ABC software, that's something I can do really quickly. I hit save. I can find those devices, export the results to Excel. More importantly, though, when the devices fall into these buckets, services can actually get applied to them. So the services are tied to the buckets. And in a scenario here, if it's a server, it automatically falls into this bucket. You'll see we have a pre-built template applied to servers. We have quite a few templates that we'll look at a little bit further in our COM store, but you can see I've added some to my environment for the devices I have. So again, this is a pre-built template. It's the base template that every single server is going to get. So event logs, services, performance stats we thought were important for every server to have. We spent a lot of time building these with our clients, but once you get more comfortable, you might come in here and start modifying things. So again, I may change thresholds, the type of threshold, quite a few other parameters, so a lot of range within these monitors, how long it has to be over the threshold before it triggers. So again, we spend a lot of time building these, but you always have the option to customize these if you'd like. Certain things create tickets, other ones don't. Again, that's up to you. If you want to say maybe there is a disk read per second where you do want to know about it, that's where you can put in a threshold and again indicate that you want it to create a ticket. Now saying that this is an actionable problem. So once you do that, that's when now the ticket will appear inside of the RMM, or if you have the PSA and the PSA dashboard. Otherwise, it gets logged as an alert at the device level that you can view at any point. You'll also be able to see the live output, so that's why you may want something to monitor without creating a ticket, is for it to log it when it spikes, and then also see the live output. On top of creating tickets, you can also modify monitors to run scripts. So perhaps disk space gets high, I can use one of our 100 plus pre-built scripts to potentially fix the problem. Also, you have the option to send a text message or email through here as well. And I'm going to keep the default, which is creating a ticket. You can also add to our template. So if you thought we left something out, we have quite a wide range of monitors. So wide range of performance stats, services, event logs, processes, WMI or perfmon, all can be monitored directly through here. We also have custom monitors. So these are script-based monitors, but again, we have a lot of pre-built ones. So if I want to check every day how long it's been since the last reboot on my servers, I would apply this monitor and I can adjust the settings, and then I decide how I want to get alerted. So with this one, I want a ticket. Any modifications or additional monitors, once added and I hit save, now get applied to all current servers, and automatically as I onboard new servers, they'll fall into this bucket. These monitors get applied. There's nothing I have to do. So this is now my global base template for all servers. On top of that, this device will say as a domain controller. It will also fall into that role bucket for being a domain controller. And again, we have an additional pre-built template just for things we thought were important to monitor for on DCs. So specific event logs and services. And again, this is now cumulative. That server gets the base template that every server gets. It gets the additional domain controller monitors as well. Global templates are great, but we wanted to make sure we made it easy to modify monitors at the device level as well. So in this scenario, we have a server. It's always running high in memory. We want to make sure that we don't monitor and get alerts every day for this device. So I can go down to the device level now, and very quickly I can make an adjustment. This seems like something that would be really obvious that you need, but it's very difficult in some tools. And with our tool, I think we've done it really nicely. So I can scroll down now and you can see all the monitors that have been applied through policies. We can go to the one that we want to change. So you can say I've done it already in the past, but I've taken this memory monitor, which was normally at 85%, and I've turned it off. Now I can go ahead and add a monitor, which I've done already as well, for a higher threshold. So I still want to monitor memory. I just want to monitor at 10% higher for this asset. What's really interesting about this is that we've only diverged one monitor. So if I go to the global level again, the account level, and I change the disk-based monitor, it'll still reflect here. If I add a new monitor, it still reflects here. If I change the memory monitor globally, it will reflect here as well, but it's off, and I've added a new monitor that's still going to remain. So you're only diverging a small part while keeping it tied to the global template, which is really helpful. You also have visibility anytime you want to see devices where you've made modifications at the global level. So at that global level, I can click on a button next to the policy, see which devices I've made changes to manually. So quite a few monitoring templates that are pre-built. You can also make your own templates or again, add to ours, and everything's applied to those groups. So just by onboarding a device now, I know that server will get the base template and the domain controller template. Also any additional templates it falls into. If we look at some other services, so you can see there's monitoring templates at the global level. We also have patching templates as well. And we'll focus on this bucket, the Windows Desktop bucket from here on out, but just know that any services we look at can be applied to any filters. So for desktops, of course, we'll have a base template. So monitoring is applied automatically. And then we'll also want a Windows patching policy most likely applied at the global level as well. So now we have two services applied against the Windows Desktop filter. The patching policy is pretty easy to fill out. We can choose how often we want patching to occur. We have monthly day of week, which is a unique option that not too many tools have. So I can set every first and third Wednesday instead of the 1st and 15th, which could be any day. I choose when I want the policy to run, so it starts at 1 a.m. I'm going to actually run this for the full day. So it starts at 1 on Wednesday, ends at 1 on Thursday. And the reason I feel comfortable doing this is because we have a reboot option that allows me not to force a reboot, but let the end user know they should reboot with a brandable pop-up. If they get canceled too many times, it sits on the screen. You even have the ability to say on Saturday, if there's still people that haven't rebooted, force the reboot at that time because we've given them plenty of time to do it on their own. Also, we have a caching option. So we didn't discuss this, but every site you can select a cache, just like we selected a network node. And this is where patches will download to directly, reducing bandwidth because you're only downloading it to one device. Any sites that don't have a cache, or if a device is off-site, it can't see the cache, you can let it download directly from Windows Updates. So it's a lot like having a WSUS server without having a dedicated device to do so, and you're controlling all those devices, all those caches from one policy that we're setting up here. Down here I can decide what patches I'd like to deploy. So instead of manually selecting patches every other week, I'll use the different criteria that you're seeing here. So I can choose the category option and say I only want patches from these buckets. So I didn't select drivers, those are excluded automatically. On top of this, I can combine additional criteria. So it has to be from one of these buckets and it has to be older than 14 days. So I can hold back the patches for a little bit, like Microsoft, iron out their problems before they get to my clients. Below you can see I've set up fine tuning a bit of my policy. So even though I have approved updates, I don't want anything that has word language paths in the title. Even though I have approved update rollups, I don't want preview update rollups. But the end result should be a very customized Windows patching policy without a lot of work to manage it. If I do need to make an exception, so maybe there is a patch that needs to get pushed out, just got released yesterday, I can come down to the manual configuration. I can search for that patch by KB or title, and then I can select the patch and approve it manually. Again, we looked at the reboot options already, but we also have the option to force a reboot and wake on LAN as well. So once I save this, again, this gets applied to all Windows desktops. I have great visibility as well, so I can always go to the Manage tab to see what's patched, what's not patched. And also I can see what actually got approved. So if this was the day before patching, we've already done our patching this week, but normally I'd be able to go to the bottom and see a long list of all the patches that are gotten approved and which devices get pushed out to next time the policy runs. If it's a scenario like this where everything should be patched or waiting for a reboot, but maybe there's a few stragglers, we can see that as well. And instead of waiting until the next patching cycle, I can actually go back down to the policy and press this button here. It'll push out the patches immediately. Just like monitoring policies, these can be modified. So typically with patching policies, you might make a change at the client level. So I can now go from the account, the global policies, down to the site or client policies. This is where I'll see those global templates, But just like with the monitoring, I don't want to completely diverge this device from the policy. I just want to make a modification. So I can override the patching policy, where in this case, I've only changed when the patches go out. Instead of every other Wednesday, they go out every Sunday at 1. Everything else is still tied to the global template. So if I change what types of patches get approved or I make an exception, that's when it'll still reflect for this client, because the only thing I've modified was when the patches get deployed, not which classes get deployed. Making modifications without having to manage multiple policies independently. I want to show this example as well that you can actually do searches for patches. So again, building your own searches and filters maybe isn't something you do day one, but I think this is an important scenario not to show how to do something or again expect you to do it immediately, but just show there's a capability to do this. So this is a case where maybe Microsoft just released a patch 20 minutes ago and you have to push it out to all 2012, 2008 servers. So again, typically this would be a very manual process, hard to confirm that we actually got it done. With our filters now, I can actually use the device attributes to find the devices that need the work done. So every 2012 or 2008 server that is also missing this patch, doesn't contain this patch. Again, it's a search, so I click on this, it shows me the devices right now that meet that criteria. I know this patch isn't approved because it just came out, and also we probably don't even have it in our system yet. So I can tell these 3 devices to audit, which will allow them to automatically ping Microsoft updates. Within about 5 minutes, I can now go to the individual manage tabs. So we were at the global manage tab earlier, looking at patching across the entire customer base. I can now go directly to a device where I can manually approve that patch, and then I can immediately push out the patch. If that patch requires a reboot, you can either schedule that to happen right now. So I'm going to go back to the filter. I just approved the patches on these 3 devices, and using one of our pre-built scripts, I can force a reboot, or I can schedule it to happen later today. Once we're done though, I should be able to click on this filter and it should be empty because there's no devices that meet the criteria of having these OSs and missing this patch. So it's a really nice way to confirm I got the work done. Normally something that would require a lot of manual work, but I can do it fairly quickly right from here and ensure too that everything's up to date. 2 months from now, I onboard another 2008 server. I can ensure that it's covered. I can click on this. And again, if the device shows up here, I know I have to go ahead and improve the patch. If not, it should be empty. Everything's good. So a lot of power, again, you're seeing hopefully in these filters, and hopefully saw it to a very complete patching solution. We also have third-party patching. And there's a couple different ways we can do third-party patching. The first is through our tool. So we do have a built-in third-party patching for several apps, most popular apps that are out there. Again, you schedule how often patching occurs, you apply it to a filter. So now we have 3 services applied against this desktop filter: monitoring, third-party patching, and Windows patching. You have the option too to automatically approve or also install. So this is a scenario where everyone should have Google Chrome, and when I get a new customer, if their devices don't have it, I know their desktops get deployed automatically. And then for the devices that already have it, they'll just get updated at this time if needed. We do have integration with a tool called Chocolatey. So that covers hundreds of apps, and it's fairly easy to update those apps through our system. These ones, though, have the advantage of reporting. So when we looked and saw a device that was up to date on third-party patching, that was being done just for these apps here. But again, with the free integration we provide with Chocolatey, we'll be able to update hundreds of apps on top of these. Visibility as well, so back to the Manage tab, we can now see the same section we looked at Windows patching. I can see if my devices are patched for third party as well, again, just for those selected apps, knowing that Chocolatey is taking care of the rest. The 4th service we're going to apply against this filter is called a job. So these are scripts. We'll look at scripts a little bit more, but this is a scenario where we're using a script as a scheduled task. So just like all the other tools, we're applying this against a filter, which means that as soon as I onboard a new workstation, these services are applied just like the other services. So again, applying it against the filter just means that I don't have to worry about applying it when I onboard those new clients, because again, this is applied globally. Just like our patching policies, we choose how often we want it to patch or run. So again, this will run right before my Windows updates. And now I can add the scripts or the components as we call them. So again, every component you see in my environment is pre-built. You can of course build your own. We'll check that out in a minute. But here I'm going to use a few pre-built ones to do some general maintenance on my desktop. So I want to run a disk cleanup. I want to use a defrag, create a restore point, as well as enforce my power settings. These tasks will run in order. So I create the restore point first, defrag goes to the bottom. And again, now we have a fourth service that's applied on a scheduled basis for all Windows desktops. Now, as we saw earlier, scripts can be run manually anytime you want to. And of course, like I said too, you can create your own scripts. So a very powerful scripting engine. I'm going to edit one of our pre-built ones just so you can take a look at how it's built. But you can see a very simple script, just the command to push out an application. We cover 8 different languages. And a really powerful part and unique part is that we're providing free unlimited cloud storage for things like executables. The only limit is the size per file, which is 2 gigs, but I can have 3 files in one script. And when I go to deploy this now, I know that I'm not going to have to worry about where the file is located, trying to pull it from a vendor website or pulling it from a storage somewhere on site. I can now use one script to deploy this application across any customers, and it doesn't matter where that client is in the world. If they're on site, again, we'll leverage the cache. So if you're deploying out an application to 20 devices, 18 of them are on site, the executable downloads to the cache, those 18 devices pull it from there. The 2 devices that are off-site know to look towards the file storage because they can't see the cache. So really powerful scripting engine that should allow you to run any task you want to remotely. And then I can run these manually as well. So this is a scenario where we have a couple new laptops at a client. We need to get them set up. I can select those devices. I can run a script to happen right now. So again, not applied against a filter. This is applied against just these 3 devices. And I can use, again, some of our pre-built scripts, which we've built a lot around or device setup. So I want to add a map drive, deploy a network printer, change 1 or 2 registry keys. I'd like to create a new admin user, deploy Office. On top of doing third-party patching, Chalklead also is really powerful for deploying software as well. And again, there's hundreds of apps they cover. And again, a few other things we want to apply. So some power settings, and I want to join it to a domain. So again, all pre-built scripts. Our scripts have basically these forms. So this is where I can choose drop-downs or manually filled out variables, but it allows me to modify what the script does without actually changing it. So I can store those values in here with Chalklead. They have their package names, as they call them, which you can find on their website. So I can type those in, separated by a space, put in my credentials, again, what version of Office I want, and additional information here. What's nice too is I can actually save this template. So this will be ABC customer laptop. And I can save this. It's now going to push out those tasks across all 3 devices, saving me a lot of time. But what's great is that next time I get a new laptop at this client, all I have to do is pull this back up again, delete out the old devices, add the new ones, and just rerun it with all those variables already filled out. So it makes it really easy when you're trying to set up new devices or do tasks, because not only can you run them en masse across multiple devices using scripts, but you can also store it for use later. So really powerful scripting engine. Next, we're going to check out how you can manage things like antivirus and data. So a couple integrations that we have. And we do have monitoring for about 9 different AV products. So if you add a new device and it has something like Trend Micro or ESET, you'll have information on both alerts as well as reporting for those different AV products. However, for WebRoot, we have a really in-depth integration. We also have some nice integrations set up with ESET as well. With WebRoot, it's a simple policy to both deploy and monitor the software. So you may make this globally if the vast majority of your clients have WebRoot, or like we did in our environment, we set it up at the client level. So the policy is pretty easy to fill out. So you choose which devices get it, which in a real environment will be all desktops, all servers most likely. You can use the Webflow console group to do configuration. And then you configure what monitors you want, which will most likely be all of them. So this is one package that will both deploy automatically as you onboard new devices, as well as apply the monitors. You then have access to some console commands as well. So instead of going to WebRoot to do this, I can go to devices directly within the RMM tool. I can select the assets that I want to perform a task on. So again, I'll have my WebRoot logo right here. I can push out console commands directly from the RMM. Also, with the Datto product, we do have integration directly within the PSA, so a lot of this visibility you can actually get within the PSA as well. But I wanted to show how you can view it inside of the RMM. So from that same Manage tab where we looked at the patch management, both third-party and Windows patching, also forgot to mention, you can also see your WebRoot threat reports here, so history of viruses. I know I'm getting alerts when viruses happen, but sometimes it's good to see the charts and graphs. And then I'll also be able to see backup information from our Datto appliances. So we looked at earlier, you might have caught, we had Veeam monitoring templates, and we'll have monitoring templates for a lot of backup tools, just like we have a lot of monitoring templates for antivirus products. With WebRoot for antivirus, Datto for backup, we're gonna have a deeper integration. So with Datto, I'm able to see my appliances, I'm able to see the throughput, both to the cloud and to the appliance, as well as information on the assets that are being backed up. So I can see the screenshots directly from here and other information about that asset. Same thing, how we get alerts for WebRoot. Of course, we're getting alerts for Datto as well. It's nice to have this visibility, this console visibility directly within Run product for everything. Last thing I want to touch on is reporting. So quite a few really nice reports that are accessible. There's about 30 of them, so I'm not going to go through all of them. But these are some popular ones that I've seen a lot of our partners use. These reports can be scheduled, so every first Monday of every month at noon, send this to these contacts. For this customer, send these reports to that contacts. Most popular report is the executive summary, so it's a very high-level summary, just letting the customer know that here's your environment, it's running smoothly, here's all the work we did throughout the month to make that happen. You can see there's a front page that shows your logo, so all brandable, as well as an overall summary. So if they don't go beyond this page, at least they have a good sense that everything's running smoothly, and then a description if they do decide to read further of each section. So we'll have a basic asset management as well as a device health check, and you fill in what is healthy for a device on their site. So if it's a graphic designer, maybe they should all have 8 gigs and 30% free. You can modify that when you're creating these reports. Second page will show all the alerts that you found and fixed at the site. We can then see the patch status, so high-level report on Windows patching, as well as antivirus. And then we can also see those tasks, those scheduled tasks that have run. You'll probably have something more descriptive for what's being done, these scheduled tasks we have here. If you want, though, like I said, there's quite a few reports. So you can see here's a patch management report, so it goes a little bit deeper than the high-level summary and the executive one. Another example that's even more deeper, showing each individual patch. So there's quite a few reports you can build if you have someone that needs deep information. And these are all customizable too. So again, I have this set for monthly, but if you need to track over the last 6 months, we can change the date ranges. Run a report manually. This is a nice one. It's just a really detailed computer audit. So if you need really in-depth device information printed out and handed to somebody, every asset will have a one sheet. This is a more in-depth health summary. So you can see just has more data, warranty information, and good for things like quarterly reports. Goes hand in hand with a hardware lifecycle report, which uses the BIOS date and warranty data to show devices maybe that should be replaced shortly. So again, lots of reports that you can schedule and send out to your clients, as well as run anytime you'd like. So hopefully that gives you a nice high-level view at both the Datto RMM as well as its integration with the Autotask PSA. If you have additional questions or want a more personalized, in-depth demonstration, feel free to reach out to your sales representative. We'd definitely be happy to help set that up for you. But thanks again. I appreciate your time, and hopefully have a good rest of the day. Thank you.